Should the Diamondbacks trade the Brewers for pitcher or closer Devin Williams? We're talking about it now in 30 seconds. Don't go anywhere. Ski to you all, and welcome in to Studio K, presented by Circle K, and another edition of the PHNX D-backs podcast right here at PHNX. My name, of course, is Derek Montilla, occasionally known as your mayor of PHNX. This man next to me is your Thunderstick, my vice mayor, I guess, today, Jesse Friedman. And it is, of course, that time of year. So make sure you vote for Montilla when you go to the polls today. But Jesse, the Arizona Diamondbacks have already started making moves. Not exactly the big moves that we wanted to make, but they do bring home ASU alum Seth Martinez off waivers from the Houston Astros. Overall, not an earth-shattering move by any stretch of the imagination, but I mean, some of Seth Martinez's numbers are interesting, and of course, we know at times that Mike Hazen tends to have a pretty good eye for talent. These are his 2024 stats. He had a 3.59 ERA with a 1.27 WHIP in 52 2/3 innings pitched. He had a strikeout percentage of 16.2%, a walk percentage of 8.1%, and a 4.78 FIP. Again, Jesse, not anything that's going to alter the course of a team's destiny, but could end up maybe being a part of this bullpen this season.
He very well could be. Yeah. I mean, anytime you pick up a guy off waivers who had a mid-3 ERA over a really significant sample, it's not like he only pitched a few innings for the Astros in 2024. He threw 52 2/3 innings, as you said earlier. So, I think at the same time, you look at some of the underlying numbers with Seth Martinez, and, you can understand why he was available on waivers, why the Houston Astros, were not necessarily compelled to keep him on their roster for the foreseeable future. So, you mentioned the 16.2% strikeout rate. That's well below league average for a reliever. That's about as low as you'll see. He really didn't miss many bats at all in 2024. And the 4.78 FIP, I think his xFIP is just below 5 as well. So the underlying numbers suggest that Martinez is probably more of a 4.5 to 5 ERA type guy. But he also was better than this in 2022 and 2023. So, maybe the Diamondbacks see something here, see some adjustments that they want to make, and they feel that they can help Martinez maintain these kind of results moving forward.
He's 30 years old and was drafted by the Oakland A's in 2016. The Astros brought him in as a Rule 5 pick in 2020. And again, the Astros are an organization that typically also have, I guess, a good track record of finding talent and finding guys like this. So overall, the numbers aren't going to blow you away. I think I've found a way to say that in 3 different ways, but still, it's one of those situations where the Diamondbacks are still trying to fill, obviously some roles in their bullpen. They're still trying to maybe make up for some of the losses due to free agency this offseason. And most importantly, they're trying to find inexpensive ways to do so. And Martinez could be that for them.
Yeah, I think he totally could. And we'll see how things shake out, right? I mean, he's on the Diamondbacks roster now. Does this mean he'll be on the opening day roster? Not necessarily.
Right.
We saw last offseason, and generally you see over the course of an offseason, you're going to pick up some guys on waivers or whatnot over the course of the offseason. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to carry over into the regular season. But he has had some success in the past as well. You look at I believe it's his 2022 season in particular, where Seth Martinez was actually quite good for the Houston Astros. He had a 2.09 ERA that year in 38 2/3 innings. And he was missing a lot more bats at that point as well. He's not a big velo guy. He throws about 91 miles an hour. That's been pretty consistent the last few years. Some of his off-speed stuff didn't miss as many bats in 2024. Changeup was down about 2 miles an hour this year, so maybe getting that velo up a little bit would help that pitch be more effective moving forward. But yeah, the Astros they seem to always have these guys floating around who are like, yeah, they're solid, decent relievers that other teams might want to have, and yet the Astros don't have room for them on their roster. So the Diamondbacks can maybe benefit from that here.
We kind of understand that with our limited bench in our PHNX fantasy football league. You have to make some tough decisions sometimes, and sometimes you cut guys you don't want to part ways with, but with only
I'm carrying
5
2
bench
kickers
spots
right now. And
yeah,
Damon
that's
is
insane.
About it.
It isn't. It infuriated me too.
I'm carrying 2 kickers and 2 defenses right now.
Hold on, we got to hear from Big End Kevin Thomas. What do we got, Kev?
I just wanted to voice my beef with the fact that we don't have an IR slot.
Oh, it's insane.
In a league
it's
with
insane.
This many people.
Yeah,
and it's just I've had 5 players
this
go out
is what
this
happens
year,
when
and
you
a player
let
gets
Saul
suspended.
Bookman be the commissioner of your league. So don't ever let that happen. But I don't know how to transition back to the Arizona Diamondbacks other than saying you're right about the Astros. They tend to not have space for guys like this. They are a very good organization. The Diamondbacks, meanwhile, again, they have to creatively find ways to get better next season, especially with the losses that they are experiencing. Now, waiver claims haven't really worked out well for Mike Hazen and the D-backs historically. A lot of them kind of have gone, I guess, quietly off into the night. However, there was that one time in 2017, I believe, when it worked really well for them when they got a guy named Christian Walker through waivers.
Yeah. I mean, generally teams don't do great on waivers, right? Like if
there's
you're
a reason
claiming a
that
guy on waivers, there's a reason that they're there, right? So the bar for success here is not particularly high. But hey, if Seth Martinez can be a contributor for the Diamondbacks in some way in 2025, then you're not really giving up anything for him, right? There's not a significant financial cost or anything like that here. It is kind of fun that he is an Arizona native, that he went to Arizona State University for several years, although I'm a big U of A guy, so
gross.
He
is so wishy-washy. He hates Tucson, but he's a big U of A guy. Make up your mind. Pick a lane.
Hey, I can love the university without loving the city. All right, Derek, we can separate these things out a little bit. All right, have a little nuance.
I'll let you people from Tucson come for him. Thank you.
No,
get
you
him,
cannot
Kev.
do that.
Get him, Kev.
Tucson is the University of Arizona.
It really
There's
is.
obviously a lot
That's
more
all
to
it's
it.
down
But that's
there.
the biggest indictment of
there's
the city
obviously
of
a lot more.
Tucson. He
There's a
just
lot more
said
to
it
it.
is the university.
No,
There's
but I'm
nothing
saying-
else there.
But I'm saying it's such a big part of what the city is. Like in the summer, I've lived there during the summer. There's a lot less people there, right? But it's also a beautiful city It's a city of gastronomy. It's one of the most diverse food cultures in America.
He sounds like Damon now.
You know what I mean? It's a wonderful city. It's a quiet city. It's not the metro mess that Phoenix is sometimes.
I'll let you finish.
But yeah, Jesse, you can have your opinion. It's awesome. But we don't want you in Wildcat Nation if you're gonna act this way. We don't need you.
Wow.
As John Morant once said, you're on that side, stay on that side.
See?
Are we ever going to get a producer who isn't from Tucson?
No, I mean they assign them to us when they come here. We have our new guy Noah starting today. I'm sure he's from Tucson too. But yeah, you're right in regards to waiver claims. Is there any surprise that the Diamondbacks are already making moves this early? Not to say that this one's again a high risk move. They didn't really commit a lot of money to Seth Martinez, I'm sure, and it's just a chance for them to take a look at a guy that could potentially be a little bit of a diamond in the rough. But I mean, it's still pretty really. Here's the Diamondbacks trying to make something happen early on. Right.
I mean, they have room on their 40-man roster. So at this point, there isn't really.
Right?
Yeah, I think it's at 35. So when you have that much room on your 40-man roster, then you feel like you sort of might as well put in a claim on someone like this who you feel has a chance to impact your team in 2025. And, if the Diamondbacks, depending on how their offseason goes, maybe it turns out that they don't have room anymore to carry Seth Martinez on their 40-man roster. And then at that point, you can move on from him and maybe find his way to another team. You feel bad for someone like Seth Martinez, who doesn't really have any kind of stability this winter. Just because he was just claimed by the Diamondbacks, as I'm saying, does not necessarily mean that he's living in Arizona for the foreseeable future. Right. He's in a kind of a transient portion of his career right now. But Yeah, maybe the Diamondbacks are able to get a similar version of Martinez as what we saw in 2024, which was a guy who had a mid-3 ERA and was durable, over 50 innings pitched, and that has a lot of value.
Wouldn't a mid ERA put him in like the top 5 of the Diamondbacks bullpen staff, or am I off by that?
No, I mean, I think that's pretty fair, right? I mean, which Diamondbacks relievers were in the bullpen the entire season and were better than that? I mean, it's Justin Martinez, it's Kevin Ginkel, it's Ryan Thompson, and I think that's probably it.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't seem like it's that bad of a move overall. And like you said, if they do have to move on from him, then they can do so. But for the most part, it feels like this might be another one of those cases where Mike Hazen cooked a little bit and might bring in a guy that nobody really expected to contribute that does. Now, I will say that our social media person, Emma, when she first heard Seth Martinez, she was like, and that's somebody from the Astros organization that's very familiar with baseball. Seth Martinez, again, probably isn't going to move the needle a ton. It's definitely not the waiver claims the Diamondbacks put in, I think, in 2023, where they missed out on all 4, and they were all like players that could have considerably made the team better. I think Harrison Bader was one of them. There was that like little stretch where they tried their best and didn't happen, but that team went on, as you may remember, to do some pretty fun stuff.
I will say real quick, the Diamondbacks put in a waiver claim last December on Colin Snyder from the Kansas City Royals, another move that went very much under the radar. In that case, they did not wind up keeping Colin Snyder. They designated him for assignment in late January, after which point he was claimed off waivers by the Seattle Mariners. And Derek, do you know what Colin Snyder did for the Seattle Mariners in 2024?
Hit me with it, Jesse.
Colin Snyder in 42 games, 41 2/3 innings, a 1.94 ERA, and a 1.18 WHIP.
I'm gonna throw the chair this time.
I don't think that's very much an indictment on the Diamondbacks as much as it is just a credit to how good the Seattle Mariners are at just sort of picking up guys off the street and turning them into like effective back end relievers. So
I guess this is where this question comes in, though. Do you think he would have had that season with the Diamondbacks?
Yeah, I mean,
right?
Probably not, if I'm being totally honest.
So let's just say, again, going back to a previous conversation that a lot of people have had, if that's the case, then who do you blame it on that a pitcher would not be as good? The circumstance, the catcher, the team as a whole? Is that where you put some blame on the pitching staff or the pitching coaching staff like the Diamondbacks have done? Like, I don't know. I mean, again, that's a question I ask myself about this staff quite a bit, and that's the reason why I keep coming back to that. Now, something interesting about Seth Martinez is that right now the Diamondbacks don't have a pitching coach. So really, they don't know what, a pitching coach's feelings on a pitcher like Martinez or any of the guys in the staff are going to be. And it's honestly a great opportunity for Seth because of that. I think it's kind of like a, kind of clean slate for you to come over here. And if you can maybe last through that period of time where they don't even give you a chance, get to spring training, might have an opportunity to, be a part of this team in 2025.
Yeah, Snyder is an interesting case. I mean, you look at some of the underlying numbers there. His expected ERA for the Mariners was 3.97. So I think he probably overperformed a little bit. I'm not trying to say that, the Mariners picked this guy up on waivers from the Diamondbacks and, he's like an elite back-end reliever sustainably.
Sounds like it based on the numbers you provide.
But
I'm just saying.
I do think it's not just a matter of the coaching staff. It's also a matter of your analytics department and your front office. Like,
good point.
I don't think it's just the Mariners pitching coaches maximizing these guys, although that seems to also be the case. It's that the Mariners seem to know how to identify which guys to target and maybe beyond that, like what kind of adjustments to make, what kinds of things are you doing to maximize them. A lot of times that stuff is coming from, your analytics team more so than, who your pitching coach who's kind of handling the day-to-day activities and whatnot. So the Mariners are really good at this. Like in some ways it's kind of unfair to compare the Diamondbacks and expect them to be at that level. The Mariners are so good at that.
All I'm hearing here is that I think we figured out who we need to steal from the Mariners. As Shane knows, we will be stealing somebody from the Mariners.
Right.
Of course, it's easy to think it's going to be a player, but maybe instead a pitching coach.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, just the whole
pitching coaching
analytics
staff.
department.
Yeah, the analytics department, everybody.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dan Herron. Anyway, well, we know that the Diamondbacks will be doing whatever they can to make their bullpen better in 2025. And we have an even bigger question to ask on the other side of our break, which is, should the Diamondbacks make a big trade for Brewers closer Devin Williams? We will have the reasons why that's both a good and maybe a bad idea after this break, so don't go anywhere. Of course, Bet365 does make watching sports better, whether it's the Suns last night with their exciting win, the Cardinals, which lead the NFC West, which, again, is another inexplicable thing. But right now you can get down on Bet365 and get in on live in-game betting during those games. Of course, that just makes watching it even more fun as well. And of course, Bet365 pioneered live in-game betting, so make sure to check out everything they have to offer. Right now, new customers can choose between 2 offers when they sign up using our code of PHNX365. Deposit $10 and choose either between a bet and get offer where you can place a $5 bet or more and receive $150 in bonus bets, or a first bet safety net offer where you can place up to a $1,000 bet. And if your qualifying bet loses, you'll receive a matched refund in bonus bets. Download the Bet365 app now. Use that code of PHNX365 when you sign up. Choose your offer and find out why it is never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or over and physically located in Arizona. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, text NEXT STEP to 53342, or visit problemgambling.az.gov. Of course, we are proud to have Sanderson Ford as our official vehicle partner, and Black Friday sales are everywhere this month in November. They don't even wait for Black Friday. It starts in November. It starts in October. It's just getting earlier every year. But of course, as one of the biggest sales periods of the year, you got to go check out Sanderson Ford. They are thankful to have lived and prospered for the last 70 years in Glendale, Arizona, and they are thankful for their 500 employees as well as their customers, making Sanderson Ford America's most awarded Ford dealership. Right now, they have a little thank you for you, a Black Friday thank you sale the entire month of November with great offers. You can get a new 2024 F-150 truck with 3.9% APR financing for 66 months, plus up to $4,000 cash back. Similar savings on over 900 new and pre-owned vehicles on the lot. So don't miss the Sanderson Ford Black Friday thank you sale. And of course, OAC through Ford credit up to $4,000 cash back, requires trade-in of a 95 or newer vehicle. Offer expires November 30th. All right, Jesse. Well, the Brewers inexplicably have declined closer Devin Williams' $10 million club option for 2025, which doesn't seem to make a whole heck of a lot of sense. It seems like he is the kind of pitcher that would probably get more on the open market. And it feels like this is the beginning of them kind of starting to maybe part ways with Devin Williams. He has another year of arbitration left, right?
He does.
He's still under the Brewers. Essentially, he's still part of the Brewers organization for one more season.
Yeah, it's a really weird situation. I think this happened last year when the Brewers and Devin Williams camp were negotiating in arbitration. They wound up agreeing to a deal that tacked on a club option for the 2025 season. But it doesn't mean that the Brewers already had team control over this season. So it was just a matter of locking in a specific number that the team would have access to. And the Brewers elected to decline that. As you said, I think it was around $10 million. He is still eligible for arbitration, but he's only expected to make, I think, around $8 million in arbitration.
Is there any chance it's performance-based in any way or anything like that? Like, it just seems like a weird situation that you made a promise to a pitcher like this who still had a great season,
right?
Even though he had some injuries early on and had a terrible postseason, right? Like, I get that aspect of it, but I mean, I don't know. It seems like declining this option, which, like you said, is a weird kind of club option for 20. Was it a mutual option or is it a club option?
It's a club option.
It's club option.
It's weird. I mean, it's not. Yeah, I mean, it's something that really would benefit the team more so than the player, right? It's a club option, so presumably the Brewers were going to exercise this option if they felt it was a lower number than what Williams would make in arbitration, or as is the case this season, they're like, no, we're not going to use the club option because we think we can get him for less in arbitration. And yeah, the only reason that they can get him for less in arbitration, I think, is because, as you said, Devin Williams missed pretty significant time with injury this season. He had a back injury. He wound up throwing 21 2/3 innings. And so this was not a full season of a dominant closer as we had seen, the couple of years before that.
Which is what they'll most likely use against him in arbitration, right?
Yeah.
And then they'll also use the playoff performance in arbitration.
I don't know if you can use postseason stuff in arbitration. Maybe you can.
Like, based on what Archie was describing, if you haven't gotten a chance to see that, I think that was on Ask Archie, right? Like, if you're not a diehard, I'm sorry, join us. You're missing out. There's wonderful content. Like
Archie explained to us what it's like going through an arbitration hearing,
and it was as bad as we imagined.
Yeah,
right? It was absolutely as bad as you imagine it being. I think we, obviously, being people that have never gone through it, could only speculate. I thought it was hilarious that he thought it actually occurred in a courtroom, so he wore a suit.
Yeah,
that's a great story to not miss out on. But of course, I think the key there was it sounded a little ruthless, a little bit, And I mean, again, it's the approach of the team, it's the approach of the lawyer, which is who typically goes in there on behalf of the team, as Archie was telling us,
right,
and is the one that does a lot of the arguing against you as a player for whatever amount that you're requesting. But I think that what we've already heard out of the Brewers camp with Corbin Burns was that the arbitration process with them seemed a little bit nasty, a little unfair. And I think that that's definitely something that maybe you don't want to be a part of that organization anymore going forward. Like, maybe they have good reason to believe Devin Williams isn't going to be a Brewer beyond 2025 anyway, so that could also be the reason why they're doing this. It would seem to damage the relationship, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that's what arbitration is all about, right? It's about just damaging relationships between teams and players. I do think people are right in the chat. I don't think that one has been published yet, but it will be out soon. And if you are a diehard, then yes, you will be able to watch that. It's fantastic stuff. Have we shown Devin Williams stats for the 2024 season?
We have not.
Yet?
Let's take a look at those stats for 2024 because they are incredible, despite it only being a small sample size, right? 22 and a third innings pitched, not very much this season. Devin Williams has a 1.25 ERA, a 0.97 WHIP, a 43.2% strikeout rate,
which is ridiculous,
just absurd. 12.5% walk rate. And then 17 out of 18 for saves.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 14 for 15.
Oh, okay.
In my head, I had 17 for 18 and I put it on the rundown, and then poor Kevin made a graphic with numbers that came from my brain and not from anywhere.
At least you're stepping up here and accepting responsibility.
I'm accepting
and I think Kevin, more than anybody, appreciates that. But I think that in regards to that, I mean, again, small sample size there, even smaller sample size for this, but let's take a look at his postseason stats, which kind of go the opposite direction of what we just looked at there with his 2024 stats, right? Career postseason stats, he's only had 2 1/3 innings pitched, but he has a 23.14 ERA, a 3.43 WHIP, 13.3% strikeout rate, 26.7% walk rate, and he is 1 for 2 on saves.
I just want to point out that the math on this is crazy. He's pitched a 10th of what he pitched in the regular season, but he has over 10 times the ERA.
Yeah, it's insane. It's insane. And it's just because, again, it's a small sample size, and he was terrible in the postseason, and he seems to always have been terrible in the postseason, even though he hasn't pitched a lot, right? Of course, we do remember when the Diamondbacks faced him in Game 1 of the wild card round last year, right, Jesse?
Yeah. 3 walks in that inning. Devin Williams got 2 outs. Christian Walker had a 2-run double. Devin Williams, I mean, it's 3 appearances in the postseason, right? And there was that terrible inning against the Diamondbacks. There was the inning this postseason where he gave up a certain go-ahead home run in the 9th inning to Pete Alonso. And it's been brutal for him in the playoffs, but it's just 3 appearances. And I really can't stress enough how good Devin Williams has been in the regular season.
Right.
I mean, a 1.25 ERA this year. He had a 1.53 last year, a 1.93 the year before that. This is a guy who has a career ERA of 1.83.
That's absurd.
That
how many innings pitched?
In 235 and 2/3 innings
That
pitched.
is not a small sample size.
Not a small sample size.
Yeah.
So if the reason you trade for Devin Williams is very obvious. He very well might be the best closer in all of baseball right now.
Yes.
Certainly in that conversation. And if you can imagine the Diamondbacks bullpen with Devin Williams at the end, given what happened with Sewald during the middle of the year, They went with J Mart for the most part down the stretch. He was pretty good in that role, but I think it's clear that you might not want him in that role, at least not at this stage in his career, just given how young he is. If you've got Devin Williams at the end, you've got J Mart and AJ Puck as setup guys. You've got Kevin Ginkel and Ryan Thompson as back end options as well. That could be one of the best bullpens in all of baseball.
And then you would still have Joe Mantiply, Seth Martinez, if he stays in the bullpen, hypothetically, or Bryce Jarvis returning from injury. You also have Dre Jamison returning from injury. He would factor in here as well as a long reliever, maybe with whoever doesn't make the starting rotation out of Ryan Nelson and Jordan Montgomery.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of your bullpen problems can suddenly be fixed simply by adding one player to it that really does change everything. And that's something we saw with Paul Sewald. The difference here is that Williams is an elite closer in baseball. And like Jesse said, possibly one of the best. The big question here is it's a trade. What would they want in return? We know the Diamondbacks and we know other teams are really hesitant to give up prospects and especially proven major leaguers, but it's going to cost you a lot to get somebody like Devin Williams, even if it's just for one season of Devin Williams, right?
Yeah, I think it'd be easier to stomach paying a big price here if it was 2 years of Devin Williams and you're like, hey, we've got like the best closer in the league for 2 seasons. We're willing to pay up for that. 1 season is maybe a little bit trickier. What would the Brewers want in a deal like this? It's pretty hard. It's pretty hard to speculate. I know they're losing some pitching. They just declined an option on Colin Ray. Frankie Montas declined his end of a mutual option. So they're a little bit short on the starting pitching front, and we have heard Mike Hazen recently talk about starting pitching being a potential area of surplus for the Diamondbacks. Are you trading Ryan Nelson for 1 year of Devin Williams? Probably not, at least on the Diamondbacks. From their perspective, I don't think that would make any sense for them. But are there other guys who are maybe close to the majors but not there yet? I hate to say it because I know he's someone that's pretty popular around here, but maybe a Dre Jamison is an intriguing piece for them.
No.
I
feel like that's going to be the cost, though. Like a Dre Jamison, a Ryan Nelson, someone like that. Obviously, I mean, again, it feels worse about the fact that you're potentially trading away, someone that's going to be a future of this team for 1 year of Devin Williams, and that's where I think again, you might want to put a hard stop on that. However, next year is kind of an all-in year for the Arizona Diamondbacks. So Devin Williams being a part of this team would actually kind of track with the Montgomery's contract, Gallen, Kelly, all of those guys that are going to be here just for one more season. I feel like you have that many guys who are here playing for a big contract in the offseason of 2025 that might be, a good way to get this thing going, right? At least make a run at it in 2025. It's not great for the future of this team, and I guarantee you that the Brewers are going to want more than the Diamondbacks are going to want to give up for Devin Williams. It just depends on who it is, right? Like you might start looking at, maybe you said starting pitching. Of course, we instantly think about the young guys, right?
Gilbert Diaz would be another interesting name.
I'm going to get crazy. What about Merrill Kelly? What about going out and trading one of the guys that they have 1 year deal on? And I say obviously you don't want to do that with Zach Gallen. Maybe they do trade Zach Gallen. I don't know. Maybe you try to get something for these guys who aren't going to come back after this season. That's crazy talk, but again, when you take a look at it, at least it's a little bit more palatable that you're going to lose Merrill Kelly, who's probably going to sign somewhere else after the end of the year, hypothetically, for a player who only has 1 year left as well. And then that feels like you're not mortgaging the future to get better next season.
I don't know if you can trade 1 year of Merrill Kelly for 1 year of Devin Williams. I think you take the number 2 starter over the closer, as good as Devin Williams is.
Right.
But I mean, I guess is there
no
a
matter
way...
what, the cost is going to be too high. I feel like there's no way you're going to get away with parting ways with a couple of top 10 prospects or something like that. I don't feel like.
Yeah. If you think you're trading, like kind of a lower end depth starter for Devin Williams, I don't think that's going to happen. The Brewers, if they're going to make this move over the offseason, they could just wait and try to trade him at the trade deadline as well. Right. If they're going to make a move now, they need to really have a good reason to do that. and they're a team that still figures to be in contention. So I don't think you're trading the Brewers a guy from high A, and getting Devin Williams that way. So it's a tough deal to pull off. It's not something I'm expecting to happen, but we have heard from the Brewers side that trading Devin Williams is something that they're open to. They did something very similar last winter when they traded Corbin Burns when he had 1 year remaining.
Yeah.
This is sort of what the Brewers have done, given that they are the smallest market team in all of baseball. So it wouldn't be surprising at all to see Devin Williams moved this offseason. It's just a matter of, is that cost going to be worthwhile for the Diamondbacks? It's hard to say.
When asked about it, Brewers GM Matt Arnold said the following. He said, when asked about that possibility last month, Arnold said, "We have to stay open-minded. We're the smallest market in the league, so that's something that's required in the place that we are. But as far as Devin Williams go, I still believe he's the best closer in baseball, and I'm happy to have him." And again, I think that's a way to kind of handle the trade rumors with still saying like we're open, open to conversations. Right. However, again, that kind of fits in with it's going to cost you a lot. If you guys want the best closer in the game, and I just reminded you of that, it's going to cost a significant amount. I don't know if the Diamondbacks are that far off from being competitive in 2025 that they would need to do something as drastic that might cost them as much. The only thing is that they do have some assets, right? And like that's why, as much as I hate it, as much as it puts fire in my blood just for you to even say it, someone like Drake Jameson does make sense, again.
Yeah. And the Brewers, man, their pitching apparatus, we were talking about the Mariners before. The Brewers are also really good at maximizing pitchers. If you trade them Drake Jameson, you have to be willing to stomach Drake Jameson being a pretty good starter for like 6 years. But yeah, it wouldn't be cheap. I will say the Diamondbacks are a team that clearly values having an experienced closer. We saw in the second half of last year, to the chagrin of many fans, that this team really wanted Paul Sewald back in the closing role, right? They did. Mike Hazen very much emphatically confirmed that during his exit interview. We really wanted to see Paul Sewald back in that role because they saw the value of that in 2023 and how it allowed everyone else to settle into roles that were better suited for them. If you go get Devin Williams, it's that to the nth degree, right? Yeah. It's the best, arguably the best guy in the league at the top of his game in the ninth inning. And the D-backs at that point, the depth that they've built, they would have a lot of really solid options leading up to that as well. So it's compelling. I mean, the Diamondbacks haven't had a bullpen as good as the one I think they would have in probably ever. I don't know if the Diamondbacks have ever had a bullpen as good as what I think it would be if they traded for Devin Williams.
AJ Puck, who video game Torey Lovullo refused to use in the NLDS,
he did.
Is probably, arguably, one of the best left-handed relievers in the game. I mean, his numbers back that up in 2024. And then again, we don't even know what Justin Martinez is going to be yet. He hasn't even evolved to his final form yet. Kevin Ginkel, Ryan Thompson, those are guys that have been solid. And I mean, those are the four guys that you would rely on in not only setup roles, but mental relief roles throughout the majority of the season. And that just looks much better than some of the options the Diamondbacks had at times this year. Also, I don't know. I mean, I don't even know if Devin Williams necessarily is needed, right? I mean, there is something to be said about how good Justin Martinez was at times and his progression, right? Like, how a new coaching staff, as far as the pitchers are concerned, could impact someone like Justin Martinez and maybe even get more out of him than Brent Strom and Dan Carlson were getting out of him.
He has, just for those who don't know much about what makes Devin Williams so effective, he has arguably the best pitch in the sport. I think you could at least make that case. His changeup, which is been nicknamed the Airbender, has outrageous movement. It spins crazy. Way more than the vast majority of changeups across the league. It has like 19 or 20 inches of horizontal movement, which is ridiculous. It drops way more than average changeups around the league with similar velocity.
If you hit it, it's like hitting a brick with your baseball bat.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. If you look at some of the movement numbers on that pitch over at Baseball Savant, the vertical drop is 7.1 inches more than what is average for a similar velocity, release point, all that. And then the horizontal break is 5 inches more than the average. So it's this pitch that basically no one across the league has managed to hit. It makes Devin Williams one of the best pitchers in all of baseball.
Ernesto in the chat is suggesting that the Brewers probably asked for one of Lawler or Drew plus 2 others. Like, again, see, that's where you start getting to an insane amount of like, it's not worth it. You're
not getting. I think even the Brewers, I don't know if they would ask
for that.
Maybe they would ask for Lawler, but there's no way they're expecting to get that, right? I mean, Lawler is still considered like a top 10 prospect in baseball. You're not getting that for 1 year of a closer, even as good as Devin Williams is. Drew Jones is more reasonable. I don't think that's an unreasonable ask. He's a little bit farther away than I think the Brewers might be targeting in a deal like this. But I think that at least
no more top draft picks. I can't part ways with any more top draft picks. I want, because this is how this team is built. Period. This team is going to be built through these young guys, through guys that are already here, through Mike Hazen making savvy moves and maybe bringing in someone like Seth Martinez that somehow miraculously could even be better than he was with the Astros last year, or at least put up similar numbers and be a part of this staff. I think when we start getting into the idea of giving up so much for a guy that you're only getting 1 year of control out of, I mean, again, also a guy that proved, at least in a very small sample size, to not be good in the postseason.
Right.
I'm also not, kicking Emmanuel Clase out of bed. That's the conversation we had in regards to, like, even though he absolutely dropped the ball in the playoffs, that is still one of the best pitchers in baseball, one of the best closers in the league, and you'd happily have him be a part of your staff, even if, his numbers in the playoffs look as atrocious as these two guys' numbers do, in a small sample size. I just think that the Diamondbacks are going to have this weird, like, transition between 2025 and 2026. And I think beginning at that point in 2026, there just could be a lot of these, like, what are they going to do? How are they going to replace Gallen and Kelly and Montgomery? Well, a lot of those candidates could be here in the organization already, and they could be ready to go next year, that this team doesn't necessarily have to make, these so many moves in order to make this team competitive once again in 2026 and beyond, right? And so part of that is patience. Part of that is not parting ways with guys like Dre Jameson and Ryan Nelson, who could potentially be the future starters of this rotation. I don't want to part ways with guys like Min Lin or other top prospects in the organization. At this point, for one season of Devin Williams, I would rather just let those guys flourish here and be a part of the future here. The Diamondbacks already have a proven track record of not bringing guys back after, their season is over, especially someone of Devin Williams' caliber. So that's what especially concerns me. Right. And the Diamondbacks most likely aren't going to be that team to pay him. So you're really just doing this as a rental for 1 year. I just don't see it, considering the cost inevitably is going to be too high no matter what that cost is.
Yeah. I mean, I think it does, like, Devin Williams is the type of player the Diamondbacks would like to have this offseason. I do think they're going to look for back-end relievers who have closing experience. Yeah. And I do think it makes some sense for the Brewers to explore a trade. But kind of as you're saying, like, you only have so many bullets to fire in terms of trades you can make, right? Only so many trade assets that you're willing to part with. Is an elite closer, is that really what you want to, is that really what you want, that those trade assets that you're willing to part with to get you? Or is there something else that you would rather have? Would you rather try to help rebuild the offense? Does this go back to trying to, maybe replace Christian Walker at first base if he goes elsewhere? There's probably going to be higher
priorities.
Higher priorities, other things on the checklist that are more important than this.
Do you believe Justin Martinez could be an elite closer in MLB?
I think so. Yeah, I absolutely do. He has the stuff for it. There's no question about that. I mean, he's throwing 101 miles an hour, right, with a splitter that is nasty and a slider that is pretty darn good also. It might take some time. I think there's merit in going and getting someone who has closing experience, as I said earlier, because J Mart looked a little shaky in that role at times. But I think he has the stuff for it, and it wouldn't shock me if at some point he's able to harness the control enough and just sort of mature out there enough to be able to take on a role like that.
It would be nice if the individual was somebody that could be a mentor to J Mart and maybe help him come along and become, again, that evolved next form of himself, right? Because I feel like he's that close. He was the talk of the team. Torey Lovullo said it to us more than once, that when he was out, when he was doing especially the All-Star game, he was the manager of the National League team, people were asking him about Justin Martinez. Who is this kid? Where did he come from all of a sudden? Because it's not like it was all of a sudden, but I think what happened with him is he went from being kind of wild with some great stuff to dialing it back just enough where he had control, and suddenly he found himself.
Wasn't just kind of wild before.
Oh yeah. It was a roller coaster to watch Justin Martinez pitch, that's for sure. But also, I've never heard, like I did in spring training, I've never heard the ball hit the mitt as hard as I've heard it in person than when Justin Martinez was throwing it. And that's something that to this day I still very much remember going, oh my God, that sound. It was like, something I've never heard before. It sounded like it was going to take the catcher's hand off. So he I think still has the ability to make that leap in 2025. And if he can, then the need for someone like Devin Williams isn't there. So I don't know. Again, this is an important season for the Diamondbacks. I think they're going to be all in. And I agree with Jesse. I wouldn't be surprised to see them go out there and go after a guy that's an elite closer, but those are limited and few and far between at this point. The only way you're going to get one is with trade. So maybe a Carlos Estevez who's out there. I know the Phillies got him at the deadline. He had a really good season. He's still throwing hard, but he is a little bit on the older side. I don't know how people would feel about that. But yes, you're right. There are not many guys like that out there on the market. That's for sure. All right. Well, speaking of the market, there might be some people that are lying a little bit about their age just to be a part of the MLB market. We're going to talk about MLB investigating a Dominican prospect for lying about his age and making a whole lot of money from the San Diego Padres. So don't go anywhere. We'll talk about that on the other side of this break. I know it's chilly out there. It might not be polar pop weather, but you're still thirsty. You still might need to get yourself something to drink. Stop by Circle K. They got cheap gas, cheap drinks. You can get your coffee there for cheaper probably than anywhere else you're going to purchase it as well. And of course, you can also join the Inner Circle for free right now by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details. But when you do, you'll get your first 5 Polar Pops for free. And you also save 25 cents off per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups. You'll save 3 cents off per gallon every day after that, unless you use Damon's premium account, and then you'll get 5 cents off per gallon. I'm not going to tell you which one of us on the set has been doing that, but I think you can figure it out. You also get buy 5, get a 6th one free on a selection of Circle K products as well. All sorts of wonderful stuff. So join the Inner Circle for free by downloading that Circle K app today. And of course, go get yourself something to drink. It is America's thirst stop. The same cannot be said for winter here in Arizona, Jesse. I know it's not as hot. You might not need those drinks, but you still need yourself a quality pair of sunglasses, and you can get those from our friends at Shady Rays. Shady Rays, of course, has some of the best sunglasses that you can get out there. Some wonderful crystal clear optics and some amazing frames that'll fit your face. And it all comes at a price that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglass company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. And of course, they probably have a style in your favorite team's colors. So make sure to check out Shady Rays, especially some of their limited edition options. You can also check out their insane replacement plan where they tell us if you break or lose your Shady Rays, even on day one, they will send you out a brand new pair, no questions asked. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code PHNX for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself. Again, the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Well, Jesse, we know the numbers don't lie, but only the numbers don't lie. People, they definitely lie. I lie all the time, even despite what I say on the show. But it's easy to lie, right? Sometimes we want to lie about our age. Typically, when you're a 43-year-old father like I am, you make yourself younger, right? That's pretty much the time. But there's other times in life where you want to make yourself older. But with Major League Baseball, of course, especially as a Dominican Republic, you definitely Dominican prospect. You want to make yourself younger. And that's what someone did, Jesse. It's not the first time that this has happened, but this is the latest for sure. And there was a whole lot of money on the line. According to ESPN, MLB reportedly has found that a Dominican prospect with a $4 million deal with the Padres, lied about his age. This investigation found that teenage prospect Cesar Altagracia falsified his paperwork and is actually 19 years old, not 14, as he previously claimed. Now, why is that a big deal? Well, when you go read some of the things like scouts had to say about him, they definitely talked about how big and strong he was compared to the other 14-year-old boys. That was a little hilarious to me. But it's also obviously a big deal. This is like a verbal agreement to sign with the team that's going to happen down the road. But this is the process where this is the reason why every MLB team has like an academy in the Dominican Republic, is because there is just a wealth of talent there of these, and everybody's trying to find the next big hot prospect that, of course, they can sign to a deal when they're not even old enough to drive a car yet.
Yeah, this whole system is a mess, right? And
it's ripe for fraud. Like it's absolutely ripe for fraud.
It really is. These situations are unfortunately bound to happen, and I know a lot of the attention has gone toward this individual. I don't even know if we know his real name. We know that he was assuming the name Cesar Altagracia, as you mentioned earlier. I'm not exactly sure what the situation is there, if that was like an alias of some sort. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the attention goes to this individual finding a way to make it look like he was 5 years younger than he actually was. But on the other hand, like, the San Diego Padres had a $4 million contract, like prearranged with a 14-year-old, in at least from their perspective, right? That's what was happening from their perspective.
It's a verbal agreement that I think when he turned 17, I believe, or was 16 years old, then they would have actually signed an actual agreement, right?
Because you can't actually, there's a minimum age you can't sign until you're at least 16. So. Yeah, I think this situation also illustrates how weird it is that even if the age had not been falsified, that what was happening here was a 14-year-old who was agreeing to a multi-million-dollar contract several years before he could actually receive it. This whole situation is pretty messed up.
It's just wild because I watched a documentary I was telling you about where like parents were kind of holding kids back in like junior high school, so that then when they played football in high school, they were older and bigger and stronger than their classmates. That was like an actual like problem that they were having in football in parts of the country, right? And I mean, again, this is because part of the scouting of you, again, they're looking for qualities of a grown man baseball player and a small child. So if you are a grown man at 19 years old and lie about your age, you're obviously going to look like a bigger prospect. Like he was one of the top prospects out of this class. In fact, he was one of 3 players in the cycle that signed for more than $4 million. So there's other kids that are also verbally committing to this $4 million plus deal with teams. We know the Diamondbacks have an academy down there where they're also scouting talent like this. But I mean, this is wild because I think like 15 years ago, there was a situation with Jim Bowden and the Nationals where the Nationals got defrauded by a 19-year-old prospect who was going by the name of Esmilian Smiley Gonzalez, which was not his name. He turned out to be a 23-year-old who actually named Carlos Alvarez Daniel Lugo. And the Nationals had paid him already, Jesse, a $1.4 million signing bonus. That man robbed the Nationals of $1.4 million. And like, I don't know if there was any attempt to recoup the money or if they even could, because you signed him and whatever. But I would think that fraud and not being the actual person whose name is on the contract would be enough for there to be some sort of action here. It feels like, based on what we're reading and this article from ESPN and Yahoo Sports also kind of chimed in on it, that this unfortunately is a byproduct of, I guess, this kind of mad dash to make these kids a part of your organization long before they have a chance to like sign with someone else, sign for more money. I mean, I don't even know the kid. Like, it's just wild. This is the reason why we have drafts in Major League Baseball. This is the reason why sports don't let teams just go out and start offering contracts to 10-year-olds who can kick field goals and stuff in football. Like, this is wild to me.
Yeah, it it's really bizarre because you're right. Like here, players that are stateside, the process is pretty simple. It's a draft. It's kind of what the other sports do. And yet for recruiting international amateurs, we have this bizarro system where teams are trying to discover these guys as early as they possibly can. They're trying to, basically come to a handshake agreement with them as young as 12 or 13 years old. And then at that point, they're trying to have them work out at team facilities to basically hide them from any other organization from discovering them. It's a really messed up situation. And I think the union, I think the league both understand that it's a messed up situation. There was some momentum during the last CBA negotiations to try to institute a draft system for international amateurs as well, which I think would just make way more sense. But they, like a lot of things, they were not able to come to an agreement on that during the last CBA negotiations. And so we continue to have this really wonky system that unfortunately incentivizes players like this teenage prospect out there in the Dominican, looking for life-changing money, understandably so. And apparently he did a pretty good job with the paperwork and whatnot, because that's a pretty major thing to pull off.
What's wild about it is even a quarter of that amount is a life-changing money for a lot of us. But I mean, again, I don't have experience.
I don't even need a quarter of it. Give me seriously. I'm overjoyed.
But like I'm saying, I lived in Puerto Rico. I know how. I mean, again, I haven't lived in the Dominican Republic. However, they're similar, with the exception of Dominicans sharing a island with Haiti, and that Haiti can be a pretty unsafe place at times, right? So it's like there's times where, like, again, I understand how from an impoverished country or somewhere that you're trying to make a better life for yourself, that like this might not seem like that big of a deal either to a Dominican kid that he lied about his age a few years. Like, what does it matter? I'm not 14, I'm 19. It makes all the difference in the world when every scout is talking about your muscles and your height and your size, right? Like, it's a weird system. And again, it's kind of like a lot of things in baseball. It's like what's happening with the deferrals, right? With the Ohtani deferral. And I don't mean to somehow complain about the Dodgers while talking about this incident that doesn't include them in any way.
That's exactly what you're
doing.
But
that's what I'm going to do right now. You buckle up, because that's what's happening. No, but I'm just saying, like, there comes a point where, like, okay, you open this kind of Pandora's box, and now what is to keep every other team from Major League Baseball and going out and pursuing free agents and having them defer it? I guess it ultimately comes up to the individual, and not most baseball players aren't making the kind of money on the side that someone like Ohtani is making, which allows him to defer those payments because he doesn't need that cash right now. And again, it can help the team out. It does feel, though, like we are going to see more of that happening, and then eventually baseball is going to have to do something maybe about that, because it just feels like circumventing the rules. And in a way, that's kind of what this feels like to me, is like you go down and you talk to a kid at 13 years old and you have him verbally agree to something, and it's like, I don't like this. I don't like the way that it's set up, and it just feels like there should be something to oversee it. And again, like you said, they don't want to. They feel like it's going to impact the amount of money that these kids can make, or make it a more complicated process, or whatever the case may be. But it's right. It's what's right. Even if it does make it more complicated, even if it limits them from making more money or as much money as they can under the current system, it just feels like it's a safer way to operate than allowing your Major League Baseball teams to pay a guy a $1.4 million signing bonus who wasn't at all that individual that he claimed to be.
Right. Yeah, it's not just the falsified age that gets me. It's the false identity. Like the Padres didn't even know what this kid's name was. I mean, it's unbelievable that. But I think it's just the system just lends itself to this kind of behavior on both sides, really. I mean, not the Padres necessarily did anything morally wrong on their side.
There's lots of players out there that have come to similar agreements, maybe not for as much money as this agreement was,
right,
but come to similar agreements with kids that are that age in the Dominican. And again, there's so many things that feel wrong about it. And I mean, we're probably oversimplifying it. I'm sure in the Dominican, there's still like parents involved and other things involved because of the age of these kids, right? Like you can't just be going up to a baseball field and be like, hey kid, you want a lollipop? You want a $4 million contract? Like that seems like a creeper and like you're wrong, right? But I mean, it still feels like, again, the safety might be useful not only for the players themselves to understand like everything more about what they're getting themselves into and maybe what options they have, but safer for the teams that are attempting to sign these young people that might not even be the person they claim to be.
I think I need to see your birth certificate, Derek. I don't even know if is Derek even your real name?
That's never gonna happen. I'll never show you.
Are you
that.
5 years older than you've been telling us all along?
I'll never reveal that at all. I would make myself younger than 43. Okay. Again, like they talked about him shooting too high. He should have said he was only like 17 instead of 14. Yeah, you're not wrong. I get it. Yeah, he shot too high. You should have made him be 17. I don't know. I don't disagree with that. Like, you got to be a little bit closer to your age.
Age is really an important part of the equation, though. Like how highly a team will view you as an international amateur, very much connected to your age.
Yeah.
If you're doing certain things and you're 14 or 15 and you're already looking like a guy who could, hold his own in the minors or whatnot, you're a much more interesting prospect than if you're doing that at 18, 19 years old or whatever. So it's a huge part of the equation. And again, it just makes it all the more lucrative for people to do things like this, where they try to fudge it, and apparently they're able to pull it off.
Look, we've all watched Little League World Series and thought, like, I would sign that kid right there. When that kid, Big Al, Jesse, looked at the camera and said, I hit dingers, I was ready to give him $16 million right there on the spot.
Like, at least half of the Little League World Series participants are also falsifying their age, right? Like, can we all agree on that? There's no way those kids are 12.
Oh, it's so rough when you're a real 12-year-old and then you have to go up against that and you look across the field at like some other law. You're like, no, there is no way. But I also felt like that going to my high school. Like for some reason, when we would play football against other high schools, their football team was just bigger. Like they were just bigger people than us. I didn't understand how that was allowable or whatever. But anyway, thankfully the Diamondbacks have avoided all of this nonsense, and hopefully they will continue to do so. It's not like they haven't had their share of bad situations with prospects, as we know in the past. But of course, none of them are nearly as bad as being defrauded by one of them. So what we will do is continue to monitor the offseason and continue to keep an eye on any names that might pop up for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Maybe we'll even explore the idea of trading Zach Gallen a little more, even though you guys will probably hate that. But, of course, we will be back tomorrow with another 1 p.m. episode, so make sure not to miss that, of course. In the meantime, you can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Cap_Caveman with a K. This maniac next to me is at Jesse N. Friedman. Of course, our guy Kevin Thomas on the ones and twos. You can find him at Kev Tom Wright. So I'm going to make him change it to his official nickname of Big Intimate. So you can also start following the Big Intimate account wherever you find that on Twitter.
Like at Real Big
Intimate.
At
Real Big Intimate. Yeah,
I wouldn't look that up.
Yeah, you know what? He's right.
That is not my Twitter.
If
you're on public Wi-Fi, it's Kev Tom Wright.
Okay, well, we won't look that up at work. Donkey says he wants to see, as a mayoral candidate, we need to see your paperwork.
I think that's a fair point.
No, actually, if there's anything I learned from Donald Trump, it's that I don't ever have to show you any of my paperwork, no matter how much you ask me for it. So I've realized that. Michael Dixon, good to see you in here. And of course, Kyle Dannon says, I'm not super opposed to a Gallen trade, since we should at least get something for him if we are unable to keep him in a D-backs uniform long term. I like it. We might be chatting about that tomorrow, so make sure to join us then. Of course, again, our show is at PHNX_D-backs, but all roads lead to at PHNX_sports on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We thank you guys so much for your time. We hope to see you here tomorrow. We also hope to see you at some Arizona Fall League games. Don't forget that Home Run Derby is on Friday, and the All-Stars game, or Fall Stars game, is on Saturday. So that's not to be missed. There should be some future Arizona Diamondbacks, one way or another, playing in that Fall Stars game, even if they have to acquire those people via trade. We'll see what happens. But, of course, until the next time we meet, we hope you guys have a wonderful evening. We thank you so much for your time. And remember, kids, baseball is fun, but it's so much more fun when you don't bet the farm for 1 year of Devin Williams.
We all silly like the mayor.